Belarus has released and handed over to Ukraine 114 political prisoners, including 5 Ukrainians. The head of the main intelligence directorate, Budanov, personally oversaw the process. We will share the details of the exchange and what work is already underway for the next stage. Russia's Shadow Fleet is now in Ukraine's sights. President Zelensky stated that this is the largest package of sanctions against tankers and other vessels transporting oil and other energy resources, not only under the Russian flag. What kind of damage will this inflict on the aggressor country? Putin continues his terror against Ukraine's civilian population.
The tongues of flame were right here and here. The fire came right in with some kind of debris.
The Russian army attacked Odessa and the region with missiles. Due to extensive destruction, part of the region was left without electricity. A security guarantee from the United States of America.
This is called a security agreement. Yes, we would help. We would help with security because I think that's a necessary factor for everything to work out.
9 people were injured in the Kharkiv region as a result of Russian shelling over the past day. This was reported by local authorities. The Russian Federation Army actively used various types of weapons in the region, including missiles and about 24 drones. Power grids, garages, cars, and private homes were damaged. The Mykolaiv region was under attack by Russian occupiers last night. 5 people were injured, according to the regional military administration. 3 were hospitalized, including a 16-year-old girl. Several districts, as well as critical infrastructure and electric transport, were left without power. In Mykolaiv, all critical infrastructure facilities are operating on generators. During the Russian attack, on the night of December 13th, the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant was disconnected from the Ukrainian power grid for over an hour due to damage to power transmission lines. This was reported by the head of Ukrenergo, Vitaly Zaychenko, during the Yedini Novini marathon broadcast. According to him, only after the air raid alert ended were specialists able to restore power to the Zaporizhzhia NPP from Ukraine's energy system. The head of Ukrenergo emphasized that such incidents pose a danger to all of Europe. 4 people were injured as a result of Russian strikes on Odessa and the region. The Russian army shelled the region throughout the night and also on the morning of December 13th. Due to extensive destruction, the Odessa region was left without electricity. By evening, electricity was restored to 40,000 subscribers in Odessa, but a significant portion of the city's residents still have no electricity, heating, or water. Ksenia Sitinskaya reports on the aftermath of the attack.
Natalia recalls the night and morning of December 13th with horror. The woman lives in the city center. Her apartment is in a basement. However, even that didn't save her home. Natalia's home still suffered damage.
Here's my bed. I've already shaken the glass off it. Something burning flew into my room from over there. You see, even the curtains are scorched. There's even a burnt spot on my sweater. I'll show you now. I put it out right away with a blanket.
After the Russian attack, the windows in Natalia's apartment were shattered. The blast wave scattered things everywhere. Since last night, the Odessa resident has been trying to clean up, but there's still a lot of work to do.
We were getting ready for New Year's, you see. We thought we'd be celebrating, but unfortunately, we were faced with the Russian world.
She still can't recover from the stress she's been through. Natalia and her mother's beloved pet is Yasha the Spitz. The blast wave simply threw him out of bed.
Our little dog sleeps at our feet. The dog sleeps at our feet. And then this happened, this explosion. I look and the dog is gone. She was knocked over by the blast wave. There was smoke and dust everywhere.
Albert also lives in the damaged building. During the night when the strike happened, the man put out the fire in his apartment himself before the rescuers arrived.
Flames were coming right here and here. They came in. There was fire with some kind of particles, fragments. Burning particles. And
where were you? I
was sleeping here and my mom was over there. I started putting out the fire and I could barely breathe at all. It was completely dark and there was this thick mass of black smoke. I started putting out the fire with whatever I could find and I managed to extinguish it. My mom, with nothing to do, ran over there. Of course, I felt dizzy and nauseous and my head hurt a lot because I had inhaled so much smoke.
While the site is being cleared of debris and the aftermath of the attack is being dealt with, specialists are assessing the extent of the destruction. At this point, it's unclear whether it's possible to continue living in this building. There are 31 apartments here, and every single one of them has been damaged.
Either the building will be repaired and restored, or we will have to relocate the residents.
As a result of the Russian attack, the region's energy infrastructure also suffered significant destruction. The entire city and most of the region were left without electricity. In Odessa, electric public transport has temporarily stopped running. The water utility has been left without power. Since early morning, lines have formed at the water wells. People are collecting water for household needs. Here you go.
We'll collect some water. For the toilet, we go outside and we cook over a fire. At
night on December 13th, the entire south of Ukraine was targeted by Russian drones and missiles. Besides Odessa, the occupiers also struck the energy infrastructure in Kherson, leaving the city partially without power. Mykolaiv was also subjected to a massive attack. There, residential buildings were reported damaged and 5 local residents sought medical assistance. Ksenia Sitinskaya, Zorab Tediluri from Odessa for Freedom TV channel.
Thousands of families in 7 regions of Ukraine were left without electricity after the overnight strikes by Russia. This was reported by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. He noted that energy workers are making every possible effort to restore supply and improve the situation. The president once again called on the world to put pressure on the Kremlin. After all, such actions by the aggressor make it clear that the Russian Federation does not intend to end the war against Ukraine.
It is important that everyone sees what Russia is doing right now. Every step they take in terror against our people, all the attacks, because this is definitely not about ending the war. They still want to destroy our state and inflict as much pain as possible on our people. That is exactly why we need support in everything that can help protect lives and end this war. Strengthening air defense and our soldiers on the front line, enhancing our long-range capabilities and increasing pressure on Russia. In order for all our diplomatic efforts to yield results, we must put pressure on the aggressor so that they end the war they started. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The G7+ coordination group on Ukraine's energy issues is ready to help strengthen the protection of the country's energy infrastructure from Russian strikes. During the online meeting, the participants in particular pledged to provide Ukraine with sufficient supplies of gas and electricity for the winter period and to continue delivering the necessary repair equipment. In addition, efforts will be directed at eliminating the funding shortfall of the Ukraine Energy Support Fund and accelerating reforms in the energy sector. The Ukrainian Defense Forces have regained control over 16 square kilometers in Pokrovsk of Donetsk region. This was announced by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrskyi. In total, since the beginning of the day, 50 incidents have been recorded in the combat zone. 3
fierce clashes have been reported. More comprehensive and in-depth details regarding the evolving situation on the front line will be presented in the upcoming segment. Forces successfully liberated several strategically important suburban villages and secured multiple residential blocks within the northern sector of the city, marking significant progress in the ongoing operations. Right now, Ukrainian soldiers note that fighting continues in the center of Kupiansk, where more than 200 occupiers are surrounded by the defense forces.
Kupiansk, where from a military perspective, the processes are going in the opposite direction. That is, our forces are cutting off the logistical supply routes of Russian units, having pushed them out of the northern and southwestern parts. Some and those who still remain in the city, several hundred, are carrying out a very difficult combat mission to clear the area under urban conditions. But it is being accomplished successfully.
Meanwhile, in the southern Slobozhansky direction, fighting took place in the areas of the settlements of Prilipka, Volchansk and towards Sinelnikove. In the Lyman sector, Russian forces attempted to attack near Novoselivka, Drobyshev and Zarekne, while near Konstantinovka, Ukrainian defenders held back enemy attacks near Pleshchevka, Rusin Yar, as well as Oleksandr Shultin. In addition, Ukrainian defense forces managed to regain control over 16 square kilometers in the northern part of Pokrovsk. There, the enemy has lost the momentum of their advance, reported Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Oleksandr Syrskyi. Ukrainian fighters continue to conduct raids south of the railway, step by step eliminating the invaders and returning the city to their control. This is despite Russian propaganda, which for the 4th time has claimed the alleged capture of the entire city of Pokrovsk. In addition, according to Syrskyi, Russian occupiers continue to advance along almost the entire front line, having brought in considerable forces.
The number of Russian troops has remained at about 710,000 for quite some time. At the same time, the enemy has been unable to increase this number despite active recruitment efforts in Russia because our soldiers eliminate thousands of occupiers every day, killing and wounding them. In particular, our active operations continue in the area of the Pokrovsk-Mirnorad agglomeration. In Pokrovsk itself, over the past few weeks, we have managed to regain control of about 16 square kilometers in the northern part of the city. Logistics in Mirnorad are complicated, but they continue. Oleksandr Syrskyi, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Special forces of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine have published exclusive footage of assault operations near Pokrovsk. The video shows episodes of combat operations by the warriors of the 6th Special Operations Detachment in November of this year. In particular, these include assaults on buildings where Russian occupiers were entrenched, clearing of trenches, as well as the precise work of FPV drone operators. The intelligence officers note that as a result of clearing these sections of the front, the tactical position of Ukraine's defense forces holding the line in the Pokrovsk-Mirnorad agglomeration was improved. The Russians attempted an assault, trying to break through with a column of vehicles in the Donetsk region. The occupiers wanted to take advantage of the snowfall, counting on fewer drones in the sky. However, Ukrainian fighters from the Typhoon drone unit used precise strikes to destroy Russian ATVs, motorcycles and combat vehicles, thereby thwarting the assault and disrupting the pace of the offensive. When in the past 24 hours, Ukraine's defense forces have eliminated 1,300 Russian occupiers. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the total losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale war have exceeded 1,187,000 soldiers. In addition, the day before, Ukrainian defenders destroyed 3 tanks, 9 armored combat vehicles, 24 artillery systems, a multiple launch rocket system, 2 air defense systems, and 105 units of enemy vehicles and special equipment.
The Czech Republic has fulfilled its goal of supplying large-caliber shells to Ukraine, delivering 1.8 million rounds of ammunition. This was announced by former Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala on the social network X. Earlier, Czech President Petr Pavel stated that his country must continue to support Ukraine, not only for ideological reasons, but also for practical considerations. And this is despite calls to reconsider support from parties forming the future government coalition. They are destroying the manpower and equipment of Russian occupiers in the Lyman direction, one of the hottest sectors of the front in the Donetsk region. The servicemen of the 60th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces have been holding their positions there for more than a year and a half. The operators of strike drones in the brigade are constantly improving their skills to effectively thwart the attempts of Russian invaders to advance. Our correspondent Alexei Voronovsky spoke with the Ukrainian defenders.
I'm flying.
Come on now, please tell me. Do you need it higher or perhaps lower, or should I try to balance it out perfectly? What exactly do you truly need from me?
No, you get out visibly.
Me?
Yeah.
No problem.
The training for strike drone operators of the 60th Separate Mechanized Brigade takes the form of a competition where one plays the role of the hunter and the other the prey. The pursuer must shoot down a balloon attached to their opponent's drone.
You can never have too much training, but I always fly on simulators and on our flight tracks that we build.
On such a specially equipped course, both beginner and experienced pilots practice aerobatic maneuvers.
Karu micromotors.
Modern drone warfare in the sky requires constant improvement not only of the technical components of drones but also of the operators' skills themselves.
The 60th
Brigade, which is part of the 3rd Army Corps, has been effectively holding back the advance of Russian occupiers for more than a year and a half. In the Lyman direction of Donetsk region,
there are 3 or 4 units standing there and everyone is like, oh my sweet one, come here, come on. And really, there's this competition. Who will get there first? Who will be the first to hit it for 200? Especially if it's equipment. If it's equipment, then it's not just 3 units. There are 10 units that just rush in, getting in each other's way, all trying to be the first to hit that target and score a kill.
As the servicemen emphasized, their main task is to prevent the Russians from reaching the defensive positions of the Ukrainian defenders.
That's probably the top priority. We're doing the work that our infantry would normally do. And our task, first and foremost, is to take the burden off the infantry. The guys who are on these front lines of combat are risking their lives every day, every night, every second.
According to the General Staff of Ukraine, every day in the Lyman direction, the defense forces repelled dozens of assault actions by Russian invaders.
For instance, let us consider a hypothetical scenario where certain conditions are met, leading to a particular outcome that requires further analysis and discussion.
Each and every single individual person
It's something different, but in the armed forces of Ukraine, everyone has come together for one purpose. About the enemy and those accused of collaborating with Ukrainian special services. The youngest Ukrainian political prisoner is 25 years old. The Belarusian side also handed over to Ukraine its citizens who had been serving long sentences for political reasons. After receiving the necessary medical assistance, Belarusian citizens, if they wish, will be transported to Poland and Lithuania. In this process, Volodymyr Zelensky noted the active role of the United States of America, as well as the close cooperation of European countries' special services. Sanctions imposed by Ukraine have come into force against nearly 700 maritime vessels that are financing Russia's war. According to the President of Ukraine, this is the largest package targeting tankers and other ships transporting oil and other energy resources, not only under the Russian flag but also under the flags of other countries. In total, more than 50 jurisdictions are involved. Ukraine supports the concept of a complete ban on providing maritime services for such vessels. Volodymyr Zelensky emphasized that pressure on Russia and diplomacy aimed at ending the war must go hand in hand, as this is necessary to achieve the desired result. The Russian Federation must stop the war that it started and continues to prolong. Russia has once again attacked a civilian vessel in the Black Sea. This was reported by the Ukrainian Navy. Russian occupiers carried out a targeted drone strike on a Turkish vessel, the Viva, which was traveling along the grain corridor to Egypt carrying sunflower oil. The vessel continued on its route. There are 11 Turkish citizens on board. They were not harmed. The Ukrainian Navy maintained contact with the ship's captain and was ready to provide assistance. The strike was carried out in the open sea within Ukraine's exclusive maritime economic zone, beyond the reach of Ukrainian air defenses. The Ukrainian Navy emphasized that Russia is once again grossly and cynically violating the norms of international maritime law. The Council of Europe and the Netherlands are gathering leaders and high-ranking politicians for a diplomatic conference to establish an international commission for settling claims for Ukraine. The convention for its establishment will be adopted on December 16th in The Hague. It is expected that more than 10 countries and organizations will sign the document. Council of Europe Secretary General Alain Berset stated that the International Claims Commission will be the second independent international instrument for compensation for Russian aggression. On Monday, December 15th, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Germany to meet with Chancellor Friedrich Merz and European leaders. This was stated in a message from the German government. Merz and Zelensky will discuss economic issues and the state of peace negotiations regarding Ukraine. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom Keir Starmer and President of France Emmanuel Macron will also attend the meeting.
We are now preparing for meetings with the American side and our European friends in the coming days. Berlin, there will be many events. There will be a report from Rustem Umerov and our negotiation team on the contacts they have already had. General Hanatov and representatives of the Ukrainian defense and security sector will work on the details of security guarantees for Ukraine for Ukrainians. At the same time, Ukrainian officials continue discussions with America and Europe regarding the real reconstruction of Ukraine, the real development of Ukraine after the war. Most importantly, I will have meetings with representatives of President Trump. There will also be meetings with our European partners, with many leaders regarding the foundation of peace, a political agreement to end the war. Right now, the opportunity is significant. This is important for every one of our cities. It is important for every Ukrainian community. We are working to ensure that peace for Ukraine is dignified, that there are guarantees. Guarantees above all that Russia will not return to Ukraine with a third invasion. Thank you to all the partners who are helping us, helping Ukraine. And in these days in Berlin, we will work as actively and constructively as possible with everyone who can truly make the agreement reasonable. Yes.
A special representative, US President Steve Witkoff, may meet with European leaders and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Berlin. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal. The White House stated that Donald Trump will send his representative only if there is sufficient progress in the negotiations. It was previously expected that Trump would personally attend the meeting, but he did not confirm this information. Finnish President Alexander Stubb will also be in Berlin for talks on the situation in Ukraine. This was reported by the office of the Finnish leader, according to the publication Ulia. It is noted that Stubb had planned to visit the United States but cancelled the trip and will now go to Germany to take part in the meeting dedicated to a possible ceasefire in Ukraine. The readiness of Washington to participate in providing security guarantees for Ukraine was confirmed by the US president. And Donald Trump, he stated that this issue is a key factor for ending the war unleashed by Russia. Trump reminded that the US is considering the possibility of supporting the European contingent in the event a peace agreement is reached, in particular through air support, providing intelligence and other security elements.
This is called a security agreement. Yes, we would help. We would help with security, because as I see it, this is a necessary factor for everything to work out.
The European Union will not return frozen assets to Russia until the aggressor country pays reparations to Ukraine. This was stated by the head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, on the social network X. She reminded that the EU has made a decision to freeze Russian funds indefinitely. According to Kallas, this guarantees that about 210 billion euros of Russian funds will remain in the EU if Russia does not fully compensate Ukraine for the damage.
This guarantees that Russian funds amounting to up to 210 billion euros will remain in the EU until Russia pays Ukraine full compensation for the damage caused. We will continue to increase pressure on Russia until it starts taking negotiations seriously. The European Council meeting next week will be crucial for ensuring Ukraine's financial needs in the coming years. Kaja Kallas, head of EU diplomacy, on the social network X.
This decision eliminates a dangerous loophole and should remain in force as long as Russia's actions threaten the security and economic stability of the European Union. Thus, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha commented on the EU's decision to block the transfer of frozen assets of the Russian Federation. This is a timely and decisive step in protecting Europe and supporting Ukraine, Sybiha emphasized. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz emphasized that the decision of the EU Council to indefinitely freeze Russian assets located within the European Union is a clear signal of European sovereignty. On the social network X, the German Chancellor wrote that he is pleased with the decision, which was adopted almost unanimously together with Italy and Belgium. Let me remind you, this step is important in order to obtain Belgium's consent to provide a reparations loan to Ukraine using Russian assets. This issue will be discussed at the European Union Leaders' Summit next week. Friedrich Merz also called on the President of the United States not to promote a peace plan project without Europe's participation. During a phone conversation with Donald Trump, European leaders insisted that their voice must be heard in negotiations with Russia, since the issue concerns stability on the continent. More details in the report by Natalia Husak.
Negotiations with the U.S. administration regarding the peace plan project may take place as early as this weekend. This was reported by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on December 13th and 14th after a 40-minute phone conversation with Donald Trump. French President Emmanuel Macron and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer also took part in the conversation. The head of the German government stated that the President of the United States was presented with a new European proposal for a ceasefire in Ukraine. And although he described the dialogue with the head of the White House as constructive, he nevertheless emphasized that Europe will not allow anyone or anything to divide it.
Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, and I had a very detailed conversation with President Trump. We discussed the next steps for the coming days. We suggested that he finalize the documents together with the American government over the weekend. There is a proposal that he was not yet aware of when we spoke on the phone, since it had not yet been sent to the Americans. The main question here is, what territorial concessions is Ukraine prepared to make? However, this question must first and foremost be answered by the President of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. We made this clear to President Trump.
Friedrich Merz also stated that in his conversation with President Trump, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom represent European interests, along with Poland, Italy, and other neighboring countries. According to him, Europe seeks to ensure peace and freedom on the continent, and wants, I quote, to include Ukraine in this security system. According to Friedrich Merz, he got the impression that President Trump wants to achieve peace in Ukraine together with the Europeans.
I am quite confident that we will succeed, and after the phone conversation with President Trump, I got a firm impression that he is ready to move forward with us on this path, because he knows that the interests of Europeans must also be taken into account, and we made this clear to him during the phone call. In this regard, it was a very constructive phone conversation, during which our positions became clear and mutual respect was expressed.
At the meeting with the NATO Secretary General, the German Chancellor emphasized that it is unacceptable to put pressure on the victim, Ukraine, during negotiations. This is unacceptable. Pressure must be increased on the aggressor, Moscow. Putin is clearly stalling for time in order to continue the war against Ukraine, Friedrich Merz is convinced. We
firmly stand on the side of Ukraine to achieve our common goals. To advance this work, we will continue to increase pressure on Moscow. And finally, we will also take tougher measures against the Shadow Fleet. At the same time, we will continue to provide large-scale support to Ukraine. First and foremost, we want to use the frozen Russian assets in Europe so that Ukraine can effectively defend itself against future Russian attacks.
The head of the alliance spoke about the dangers of a policy of appeasing the aggressor. He called on the bloc's members to invest more actively in the defense industry. In order to be able to withstand Moscow's aggression, Mark Rutte believes that within the next 5 years, Russia may attack an alliance state, and then this war would be comparable in scale to World War II.
We are Russia's next target, and we are already in danger. When I became NATO Secretary General last year, I warned that what is happening in Ukraine could also happen to allied countries. And we need to shift to a wartime mindset.
The Chancellor of Germany, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and the President of France will meet in Berlin on Monday, December 15th, to discuss a draft peace plan, according to Reuters. European security interests must be protected, and for this, further coordination talks are necessary, commented Friedrich Merz. Natalia Gusuk, Vladimir Stengelov, for Freedom TV channel.
The DPRK's engineering and sapper unit, which had been clearing mines in Russia's Kursk region, has returned. In Pyongyang, this military unit was greeted with a ceremony by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. He stated that during the mission, 9 soldiers of the Korean People's Army were killed, even though, according to official data, they were carrying out work in the rear. According to South Korean intelligence estimates, since August of last year, Pyongyang has sent a total of about 16,000 of its military personnel to Russia. At the same time, according to Reuters, North Korea's total losses are estimated at 6,000 people. Russia is increasing its spending on the war against Ukraine by another 30%. These figures are provided by Janice Klug, a research fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Russia's federal budget expenditures on military items in January to September 2025 reached a record high of almost 12 trillion rubles. On average, according to statistics from the Russian Ministry of Finance, military spending amounted to 43 billion rubles per day, or almost 2 billion rubles per hour. At the same time, 2/3 of Russia's military budget is classified. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for now, we'll leave it at that. And right now, I hand over the information relayed to Valery Klimenko as part of the news broadcasting program on AFID.